Hello, I'm Dr. Michael Amusio, author of Full Stack Educator. I'm also a career independent school teacher, leader, and researcher, as well as an applied mathematician with deep expertise in machine learning and artificial intelligence. In this video, I want to show you one of my new favorite tools, which is the Comet browser, released recently by Perplexity. If you haven't used Perplexity, it's a phenomenal AI-powered tool that's used to search for knowledge. It's a search engine replacement as opposed to a chatbot like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. And their new web browser has the ability to integrate AI features into web browsing in very cool ways. So in this video, I'm going to walk through a few introductory use cases, and we're going to experiment together. When you load Comet, you get a screen that looks familiar if you've used Google Chrome or Apple's Safari web browser. What's different about Comet than other browsers is this new Assistant tab up at the top right. When you open it, you get a chatbot powered by Perplexity's models that you can interact with, and what's really neat about it is it can take control of your browser and perform actions for you. Whenever a new AI tool comes out, one of the first things I want to see if it can do is solve New York Times puzzles. And I know that seems silly, but it gives me a benchmark to understand where the AI tool can excel and where it might struggle. And so what we're going to do together is see if Comet can help us solve a few of the New York Times puzzles. So we will start with one of their very popular games, Wordle. And what I'm going to do is open the Comet chat box, and I'm going to ask it to solve this Wordle puzzle. So I'm asking it to please take control of my browser and solve this puzzle. I'm going to hit enter, and then we can watch it work. What you see is on the right side, it tells you what it's thinking and doing. And then my browser window turned blue, which means that Comet itself is in control of my browser, it's typing, and it's seeing everything on the screen. You can see on the bottom, there's this button that says Stop Comet Assistant. If I click that, it'll give me control over the web browser again. So we can look at it, Comet's thinking along on the right panel, and we can see that it is reasoning about which letters it got right and which ones it got wrong, and it's coming up with alternatives. You can see that in 3 guesses, it's gotten pretty close. It's probably going to only take one more guess, but we'll see. It's utilizing so many of the tools that we've seen released in the last few months at the same time. It's able to view your screen in real time. It's able to make sense of it, reason. It's able to control it. It's able to use its own reasoning models and writing models, as well as research. So all of that together creates a pretty powerful tool. And we can see that it actually got it right. So we can X out and we can look through. It took 4 different guesses for it to get the word, and it was able to get it. Very cool. Let's try the mini crossword. Historically, large language models have not been very effective at solving crossword puzzles. So let's give it a try. We see that the screen turned blue, which means it's looking at the screen, it's reasoning. We can see that it's highlighting the clue for 10 across and for 1 down. And we can see that it just highlighted all of the text on the screen, which is interesting. And I hear the sound on my screen, which is the copy paste sound, which means it's copying all the text and pasting it into itself somewhere, probably into its research tool, to think through the puzzle and generate some solutions. Ooh, now it's kind of interesting. So this is probably a negative, something that's not great. Instead of solving the puzzle just using its own reasoning, we see that it actually did a web search for the solutions to the puzzle. So that would be considered cheating. And it actually, instead of typing them in, just gave them to me like right here. So let's ask it to try them. So I'm asking it to type the answers in and submit the solution. Let's see what it does. So we can see that it's thinking really hard about typing. It's talking to itself about where to click on the screen and what letter to type in. And it seems to be struggling. Okay, so it's given up. It tried, but it couldn't figure out how to type the solutions in. So let's actually type them in to see if it was able to do this correctly. Okay, so it almost solved it. We see that 7A went on a run, couldn't fit, doesn't make sense, and one down right, that's also the wrong answer. So technically, it failed. I would not consider this a win for this tool. Connections is an interesting one to test with AI because it needs to think pretty abstractly. Crossword puzzles are challenging, but there's a lot of structure to them. If you've played connections, the idea of connections is that there are four groups of four words that have a common theme. And so we want to see if it can identify what those four groups are. So I'm going to ask it to solve this puzzle. And this time I'm going to ask it to solve it without looking up the answer. All right, it was able to get the first group of four words. Ooh, it was close. Something I appreciate about what it's doing right now compared to how it tried to solve the crossword is it is not searching for the answers online, probably because we explicitly asked it not to. But that means this is a better test of its actual ability. Similar to the crossword puzzle, it's having trouble actually clicking on the buttons. It's clicking them and then it's unclicking them and it's getting confused. That's not to say that if we didn't try it again, it might be able to be successful. But so far, it succeeded at Wordle, it failed at a crossword puzzle, and it failed at connections. Although it is interesting that it was able to control the screen and attempt these. Let's try a fundamentally different task. Okay, so this is my LinkedIn account, and here's a post that is attached to an Atlantic article. I'm going to click on it, and it tells a little bit about the article here. You can see the actual post from the Atlantic. And then there's an option to send a comment. All of my LinkedIn content is written by me. I'm not using AI to generate my content, but I'm curious if this comment assistant can generate comments on a LinkedIn post that are reasonable. So we're going to open the assistant and we're going to ask it to read this post and then write an intelligent comment. So it didn't really think much at all. It wrote a reply and it never took over my screen in terms of it turning blue and it having the ability to click and scroll. So I'm a little skeptical of whether or not this comment that it wrote actually understands the full context of the post. So I'm going to ask a follow-up question. So I'm going to ask it if it read the entire post, and I'm going to tell it that the comment that it drafted is way too long. It should be like 3 sentences. Let's see what it does. Okay, so it's claiming that it read the entire post. We still don't have proof that it did. And then it gives me a shorter yet generic comment to post. So I wouldn't post this. It's not particularly insightful, but it's interesting to see that it's attempting to do this. I wonder if you were able to feed in more of your own written content or maybe a brand guide or something, a style guide, if it would be better. But right now, it doesn't seem to be able to create a really thoughtful response to this post. Okay, so now we're going to try something that's been going viral, which is asking Comet to build a playlist for you using Spotify. So we're going to open the assistant and I'm going to ask it to create some upbeat music play that I can play as students are walking in the classroom. So my prompt is, please generate a playlist filled with upbeat music that I can play while students are walking into my classroom, then take over my browser and build the playlist. Let's see what it does. Okay, so it clicked on the button to create a playlist. It is naming the playlist, named it Upbeat Classroom Arrival, gave it a good description. It generated a list of songs, and now it is searching for those to add them to the playlist. So it's running into a similar problem that it ran into with connections and with the mini crossword. it seems to be having trouble clicking into the search box and typing in the names of the songs. Oh, okay. So it had originally created this playlist here called Upbeat Classroom Arrivals, and then it was trying to add to this, but somehow it ended up creating a brand new playlist, even though it had already created a playlist. So it created two instead of one, but it did create it and it filled it with some music. I would say that it successfully completed this task. Okay, now for a potentially really useful use if it can do it. I've opened up Canva and I'm going to ask Comet to generate an introductory lesson on Newton's laws of motion and then to create a 3-slide deck about those laws. In reality, we would want something much larger, longer, or more robust, but let's see what it can do. It can create content and then put the content into a nicely designed slide deck. Okay, so I asked Comet to do the following. Create a 3-slide lesson on Newton's laws of motion, then take over my browser and create the actual slides. And I told it they should be well formatted, modern, and appealing. Let's see what it does. Okay, so it identifies Newton's 3 laws. Okay, so it looks like it's creating text blocks and then pasting content into them. And then it's potentially pasting the content on top of itself. Just creating text boxes and pasting content in, and then it's pasting the text boxes on top of each other. So Comet is telling us that our project now contains a modern, visually appealing slide lesson on Newton's laws of motion. Each slide dedicated to one law with clear definitions, key concepts, and real-world examples. I'm going to close the assistant so that we can see the slides better. And I would say that this is not what it advertised. So it looks like it just pasted blocks of text on top of one another, and some of them were not even used. So it has a definition. It doesn't actually say which law that is. If we go to the next page, let's see. This one at least says it's the second law. I need to spend some time looking at this to check the content, see if it's accurate. But I don't think I'm going to spend that time because it seems like it's categorically failed. So I would say that while it's neat that it could take over my browser and do some things, it did not successfully create an appealing slide deck at all. So I would say that that's another fail. Okay, now I'm curious if Comet can help me with Excel. So I've got 2 columns of data here, and I want to create a scatter plot. I'm going to see if it can create that scatter plot for me. So I'm asking it to take over my browser and create a scatter plot of hours studied versus test score. Let's see what happens. So that was a little unexpected. It took the data and it did create a scatter plot, but it didn't create the scatter plot inside of Google Sheets. So that was sort of helpful, but I'm going to ask it to do it again inside of Sheets. So I said, thank you, that's really neat, but I want you to take over my browser and create the scatter plot inside of Google Sheets. So looks like it's making progress. It highlighted the 2 columns and it did insert a chart and it selects scatter chart and it looks like it's tweaking the settings right now. Okay, it finished. Let's take a look at what it did. I'm going to close the Comet Assistant, close the side panel inside of Sheets, and voila! Looks like it did a good job. We have hours studied on the x-axis, test score on the y-axis. It's got a title, and it's a scatter plot. I would say that was a success. So I'm pretty happy about that. I think that this is a use case that could maybe be helpful for faculty, administrators, and students who might not be spreadsheet savvy or want to spend the time learning how to do various things within Excel or Google Sheets. So I'm pretty happy about this use case. Okay, now this is a use case I was really excited about, and I'm very curious to see what happens. So I'm inside of Canvas, which is a very popular learning management system for colleges, but then also a lot of schools, K-12 schools use it for mostly upper school, but it is a phenomenal learning management system. I created a blank course in here called Algebra, And what I'm going to ask Comet to do is create a quiz for me. So I'm going to click on quizzes. You can create a new quiz here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll click that button to get it started. But I want to see if Comet can create a quiz for me and fill in all of the content for it. So I would never do this as a way to produce actual content for students, but I am curious if it's a way to digitalize content that I already have. So if I've got some worksheets or quizzes and I want to put them into Canvas, I could spend a lot of time typing all of that content in, or I could give access to that content to Comet and then ask it to do it for me. So let's see what it can do. I'm opening up Comet. I'm going to ask it to generate a simple quiz. So I'm going to ask it to take over my browser and generate a 3-question Algebra 1 quiz inside of Canvas. Let's go. Okay, so the first thing it did is it quickly generated 3 questions, solved the questions, and produced multiple choice responses. And now it looks like it is copying and pasting that content into the window. So it pasted the first question, and then it is putting in the various possible answers right now. There's question 1. Looks like it did a good job. Question 2. Okay, so it created a 3-question quiz. That's kind of impressive. Now the question is, did it create questions that are actual questions? Did it do a good job? And are the answers right? So let's check it out. All right, so I'm going to preview and try solving this quiz. Okay, so I quickly solved these problems. And so the correct answer is, the first one is 6. Correct answer to the second one is 3. The correct answer to the third one is 4. Let's submit and see what it says. Okay, so correct. Wow, so it created a 3-question quiz and put all the answers in there, and the answers are right. Now, the question that I'm also is, if I go into student mode, where it simulates a student looking at a quiz inside of Canvas, can Comet take the quiz for me and submit the answers, or at least click on the answers and give me the correct ones, the correct answers? Let's see. So I'm going to click take the quiz. I'm going to open up Comet. So I'm asking it to answer the questions, take over my browser, input the answers, and then let me know when it's done before it clicks submit so that I can submit it and make sure it's correct first. Let's see what happens. We can see that it identified the questions and it does have the correct answers written here. And it looks like it clicked on each of them. So now it's letting me know that it's done. And I can click submit. Now we happen to know that these are the correct answers because we just created the quiz, but we can see that if we submit it, it actually shows that all 3 are correct. So on the one hand, it's really neat for faculty who want to digitalize content or put content that they already have into Canvas. It's neat that this is a helpful tool. It's a little terrifying that the web browser itself can go into Canvas as a student and solve the problems. So there's a lot more testing that I think faculty could probably do with this aspect of the tool, since Comet is becoming a ubiquitous tool in that it's free and there are millions of users of Perplexity. And so use cases like this are concerning. But it's interesting to know, valuable to know that it can do this. Well, I hope you enjoyed experimenting with Comet along with me. It's a really neat tool. It can't do everything, but it was able to do some really neat things on its own. It was able to solve a Wordle puzzle. It was able to create quizzes in Canvas. It was able to take quizzes in Canvas, which is not my favorite thing about it. And it is showing what the future of agentic tools could look like. So imagine if it could do all of the things we attempted at a higher level. If it could go into Canva for you and design beautiful slides with your own content. If it could go into Excel and really handle complex data sets and create reports for you. These are things that are not that far away. Comet is the first tool of its kind like this, and it's likely that the other AI companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and Google will have similar integrations of their AI models uh, more closely integrated into your web experience to make it more seamless, kind of like Comet does, although Comet is not as effective as I hoped it would be. So thanks for going on this journey with me. Stay curious with AI, and I hope to see you again in a future post.